Blox Fruits, the game that put Bloxburg on the map. 2 million daily active players at its peak. This was absolutely insane. But what happened? Why did it die? And how is its legacy still alive today? That's what we're exploring today. We're going back to January of 2019 when Blox Fruits first released. This wasn't an overnight success by any means. In fact, for the first 6 months, the game had less than 1,000 daily active players. The gameplay was pretty basic. It was just a fruit-themed Bloxburg with some sword fighting added in. There were only 2 maps, a small lobby and a forest area where you could fight other players. You could buy different fruits which gave you unique abilities, but that was pretty much it. You might be wondering why I keep calling this a Bloxburg. Well, it's because it started out as a block. The creator of Blox Fruits, a developer called Len17, actually posted their game in the Bloxburg category when they first released it, and there was no game mode. The entire purpose of the game was just to chill out and roleplay with your friends. So you can imagine the confusion when people joined and saw all these trees and houses, but couldn't do anything with them. The game didn't start picking up steam until later in 2019, when Len17 added in a hardcore mode inspired by the classic game modes from games like Jailbreak and Murder Mystery 2. In hardcore, you would spawn in with no weapons and had to go around farming for food and materials. The goal was to then use those materials to craft tools and eventually a sword. Then you could set sail on an adventure to find treasure. Of course, you weren't the only one looking for treasure. Other players could attack you and steal all your stuff, which made the game a lot more competitive. This is also where the signature Blox Fruits mechanic, the fruit, came into play. Each fruit had unique effects and could be leveled up to increase their power. Some fruits even had special moves. For example, the dragon fruit allowed you to breathe fire, while the shark fruit allowed you to swim underwater and stun other players. There was also the magma fruit, the most powerful fruit in the game, which gave you a jetpack, increased your health and your defense, and allowed you to shoot a giant laser beam. At this point, you might be wondering why on earth would you want to play this game over something like Jailbreak or Murder Mystery 2? Well, unlike those games, Blox Fruits was very fast-paced. You could instantly dash across the map with your fruit ability, and fights could break out in a matter of seconds. Because of this, Blox Fruits ended up attracting a very young audience. Kids who were too young to play games like Jailbreak flocked to this new exciting world filled with swords and lasers. But even though the game was fun, that still doesn't explain how it hit 2 million players. Well, unfortunately, I think it's pretty obvious. It was a product of its time. Back in 2020 and 2021, Roblox was absolutely flooded with these types of games, the classic fruit games that every single kid on Roblox seemed to be obsessed with. These included games like Fruit Battlegrounds, Fruit Simulator, and of course, Blox Fruits. And while they all seemed similar, each game had its own unique twist. In Fruit Battlegrounds, you could pick a fruit and battle other players in an arena-style mode. There was also a PvE mode where you fought against waves of zombies. Meanwhile, in Fruit Simulator, you battled other players and monsters while collecting gems and leveling up your fruit. Then, of course, there was Blox Fruits, which had a bit of everything. You could farm for food and materials, craft tools, fight other players, explore new maps, and unlock new fruits. It was basically the combination of all 3 games, and kids loved it. At its peak, Blox Fruits was making over 50,000 coins per day, which was enough for them to hire more developers to work on the game full-time. They started releasing new updates at a rapid pace, adding in new fruits, maps, game modes, and mechanics. They even made a Halloween event which allowed you to transform into a ghost, temporarily, fly around the map and scare other players. However, things took a turn for the worse. In mid-2021, when the majority of the community got wiped by a hacker, over 30,000 accounts were hacked and used to spam the game with inappropriate links, which led to the game being blocked by Roblox's anti-exploit system. Now, to be fair, this wasn't really the developers' fault. Even though they had 2-factor authentication turned on, it just wasn't enough to stop the hackers. However, the damage was done. Many players quit the game after realizing that it was not as safe as it once was, and with that, the player count began to drop. But this isn't where the story ends. Even though Blox Fruits has died down significantly since then, it's still going strong with around 100k daily active players. And there's a good reason for that. Even though the hype has died down, Blox Fruits is still fundamentally a very good game. The core gameplay loop is very addictive. Farming, crafting, fighting, and exploring never gets old. And if you don't feel like grinding for hours to get a new sword, you can always just join the PvP servers and fight other people. Also, even though there are some cool fruits, the game isn't pay to win. You can easily get a good fruit from a chest or a drop, and the game is free. Another thing I want to say is that this game has aged very well. The graphics and sound design are still top tier, especially for a Roblox game. Even the UI looks modern. They kept the game updated with seasonal events like Easter and Christmas, and even collaborated with popular creators like Dream and Tommy Annette. So yeah, despite losing most of its popularity, Blox Fruits is still in a very good place. But what about the creator? Well, he hasn't been very active on his account since July of 2022. He has spent the last year working on another game called Project X, which will supposedly have blocks, fruits type gameplay. However, considering that it's been a year and we still haven't gotten any updates, I don't have high hopes for this game. So yeah, Blox Fruits may have died off, but its legacy lives on. It's arguably the reason Roblox is as popular as it is today. So I want to ask you, when was the last time you played Blox Fruits? Let me know your thoughts. And with that being said, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.